Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Onward to Victory podcast, your one-stop shop for all things George Mason basketball. I'm Joe Szymanski. He is Palmer Johnson. Palmer, life just keeps being great. And fun facts, the Patriots are 8-0 after a three-game week sweep for the Patriots. Starting off, we'll kick it off with the success in Daytona Beach. Mason, starting off the Sunshine Slam with a bang last Monday, a demolition of Ohio Palmer. There's not really any other way to describe it. A total butt whooping of the Bobcats, 92-69. And to be totally honest, Palmer, that score line doesn't really do the butt kicking justice, it feels like.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't because Ohio won the last 10 minutes, 22-7, when Mason just kind of sat on the ball, just to kind of be like, okay, we won by enough. We're just going to make sure, keep the win.
Yeah, certainly for sure. So obviously the big thing going into this game was to hold down Jackson Pavlovetsky. He's kind of Ohio's big main scorer. Mason held him to 7 points and only 7 shot attempts by Pavlovetsky. I believe that's his low on the season. He usually gets up well into the double digits in terms of shot attempts. Mason holding him to only 7. That seems to kind of just generally be a Tony Skin style game plan there, Palmer. They seem to relatively focus on one guy, and especially if a team has a scorer like Pavlovetsky who kind of takes over games, and they're not going to let him beat them.
Yeah, that's a big plus that we don't have to deal or that we get now. Because under Kim English, that guy is going crazy, and it's like, well, I hope his 40-point game isn't enough to win. But Skin has been a big make somebody else beat you. Because the one I remember is Jordan King in the
Oh,
second Richmond game this year. I think he went like 0 for 2, and
yeah.
that's a
Just put Jared
yeah,
Phillips on
that's
him. It's like, we're just not going to just find someone else
yeah,
to beat us, boys.
yeah, and they couldn't.
And they couldn't. And they didn't because that's not how that team was built. But just in general, a couple of really excellent performances across the team. Of course, one of the big storylines about the Ohio game, Palmer, Fat Hill back from injury. That leg is healed. He made his season debut, a solid 13 points on 5 of 8 shooting in 20 minutes, including 3 for 4 from the line, 9 boards from Fat as well. An energetic start to one of the new Patriot faces this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of saw what Fat Hill can be. Uh, kind of a kind of a shot end of shot clock bailout guy where it's give it to him with 8 seconds left, and he's either gonna get you a shot at the rim or a foul, and that's what you love to have.
Absolutely. You love to have guys like Fat, of course. Other names to talk about from this one, Palmer, Masai Troutman, 18 points, went 4 for 4 from the three-point line. Corey Minshew with another 20-point game, driven entirely by the three-point shot and free throws. Minshew, 6 for 11, including 4 for 4 from the line. A dominating game there from Minshew, who continues to show out and continues to look like a genuine contender for A10 player of the year, Palmer. I think now that we've gone through these first couple of games, you go through the first 2, 3, maybe even 4, you say, it's still early. Once you're starting to hit this point in the season, Palmer, we're more than halfway through the non-conference. Not many non-conference games left to go now. I think it's undoubtedly to be said that Corey Minshew is going to be one of the odds-on favorites to be up there as A10 player of the year this season.
Yeah, I think it's really not a bad bet. Because honestly, last year the I feel like the only guy who was outside of who was kind of in player of the year conversation, and then ended up not really being close was Sebastian Thomas, and he was just kind of like a scorer who happened to score the clutch buckets. But Mincy is scoring all the time, uh, and he's scoring extremely efficiently. I think that the big thing is, I mean, we keep saying the 3 point is going to stop. It's going to stop doing that. Going in that much, and then it doesn't stop. So
It's a question that I kind of did want to bring up to you, Palmer. Maybe this is just how this team is. Are we just maybe this really? I know that's it's. I mean, you look at the history of George Mason on Kempom. There's not really a particular history of being super elite from threes. Even in the Larinaga years, the best year was actually his last year, where we were one of the best. But this type of top 50 3-point shooting since Kempom started tracking statistics has only happened once, and it was that Larinaga year I'm talking about in 2011, that last year under Larinaga. That's the only year where Mason finished within the top 50 in the country in 3-point shooting. So I think it's understandable to say that we're not used necessarily seeing that from the Patriots, but we're certainly not going to deny it when we see it. I think it's a fair point, Palmer, and I think it's something that I have to answer too. It seems like this might just be how this team is built.
I would love it if that was the case, because I mean, Mason's still. It isn't like Mason needs a three ball to fall. Like if the three isn't falling, Mason's won some games where it's like, man, they didn't shoot very well, and they still kind of blew this team out. So it's kind of like, I mean, this is still. I would still consider this a rim first team. You know what I mean? I would consider
Mm-hmm.
this a rim first team,
Yeah, and
and
certainly this is an
yeah,
offense that still can run through the paint. This is a top 150 2-point scoring offense. This is a defense that holds the line at both the 2-point line and from three. Maybe if we just stop shooting some consistent foul shooters, as this seems to be the issue we've had this year, that'd be cool. But otherwise, this is a group that's really been able to show out through all aspects of the game, like you said, Palmer. And I think certainly a big part of that throughout the last couple of games. I feel like Riley Allenspach has continued to get more comfortable in this role, and I think the Ohio game kind of showed the start of kind of what we've seen throughout the last couple of games.
yeah. I mean, he's really been. I feel like he's been up until the Daytona. He was just kind of a. I don't know how to describe it. I felt like he was just kind of there to be there. Like, oh, he's gonna get you neutral. Like he's like, oh, he kind of a volume score. Like he's gonna go 5 for 10, and get you those 5 baskets, and maybe not the other five. But ever since the Daytona has been like, oh no, he's gonna hit some threes. He's gonna get some rebounds. He's gonna really be he's gonna be a plus player instead of just a hold the line type guy.
Yeah, certainly. You look at his rebounding stats as well: 8, 9, and 9 over the last 3 games from Allensbach. In his rebounding numbers, certainly an improvement from the first couple of games, where I think his first couple of games it was 4, 3, and 5. We had an 11 spot against New Hampshire and then only 3 against Jacksonville, but certainly those are the type of consistency in rebounding numbers that you like to see from your starting big man who's going to go. He's gone 31 minutes through the last 2 games, Palmer. That is by far and away his career high in minutes. The last 2 nights, we've talked about before. He came from the Bucky McMillan system, the Bucky ball system that moved guys in and out throughout the night, deep benches, and not a whole lot of long minutes for those starters. But either way, like we said, Palmer, easy demolition of Ohio. We move on to the next night. It looks like it's going to be an easy night for the Patriots once again. They're up 19 with under 10 to go in the second half, but this was a Florida Atlantic team that was significantly better than Ohio. It certainly had a lot more overall scoring talent. Devin Vanterpool in particular started to get open a little bit more during this part of the second half, but they made us sweat. But in the end, it's a 9-point, relatively comfortable victory for the Patriots to win the Sunshine Slam and secure the first mid-season tournament trophy under Tony Sken.
Yeah, this one got a little scary. I think it got to 5 late.
Yeah,
I
I
think
got
to
to
5 or
3
3. It got
late.
to 3. Okay, okay. Yeah, it was a little worrying. But I mean, they just kind of dominated so much early on that it didn't matter. Uh, I you will absolutely take a win against what could be teetering on Q2, Q3.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's Q3, but hopefully they can have a good non-con and make it Q2. I was really excited from that game because uh, they have some pretty good players who didn't really look super dominant that I was kind of worried about. I mean, Cannon Carlisle scored 22, but he went 2 for 10 from three. Uh, Vanderpool fouled out. I mean, it was just a pretty good game.
Yeah, in general, another strong performance from Mason. This one really up to the backcourt. Palmer, 22 from Mincy, who actually then ended up with getting MVP honors for the tournament, named the best player of the Sunshine Slam tournament. But Jahari Long, a massive 21 points from Mason's shooting guard, who I want to pull some point at. He had what I felt was a very, very quiet, I believe it was 8 assists. Yeah, 8 assists against Ohio that I want to point out there. Very, very good weekend as well for Long in Daytona. But he was huge, 21 points, 4 for 5 from 3 for Long, including a big 2-point basket late, an excellent reverse layup that really did kind of cinch the game for the Patriots, put them back up 5, and kind of then from there, Mason held the line, only let up 2 points for the rest of the game. A huge basket there from Long, kind of won it. I also want to shout out Nick Ellington here. He had a couple of very nice interior baskets for 8 points in about 14 minutes that he played. A couple of those baskets were pretty big. Didn't necessarily show it on the glass, but that was a big game for him as well. I want to point out the 9 rebounds from Allensbach. I also want to point this out, Palmer. Only 13 combined turnovers from the Patriots over these 2 games in Daytona. That is one of the very few things that Tony Skinn teams have struggled with over the last 2 years. It has been a turnover issue. A lot of people pointed to the fact, didn't really have a real point guard last year, or a guy who would be used point guard. Obviously, Baraka Koji was a freshman when he was getting a lot of the point guard minutes, especially in conference. That usually will come with turnovers as it goes. But certainly, it feels like the turnover issues that we kind of did see a little bit over these first 2 years of Tony Skinn have at least been solved to a certain extent. And certainly not as bad as the last 2 seasons. Actually, Mason is top 100 currently in turnover percentage on offense, which is good. That's a good thing. That means you're not turning. That means you're not turning over the ball a lot. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was kind of surprised because Mincy early on, I feel like Mincy was playing like in a way where I'm like, uh, yeah, he had two turnovers, and 6 turnovers in the first 3 games, and I was kind of thinking like, okay, Mincy's gonna be a guy who just kind of you're gonna have to live with the turnovers because he's so good everywhere else. But he had 3 in the New Hampshire game, and then it's been 1-0, 1-1. So I mean,
You love
it was a
that.
problem early on, and then you will absolutely take 1-0, 1-1 against with a high usage guard, who, by the way, so he leads the A10 in scoring and also
Mm-hmm.
efficiency, which is an absurd combination to have.
You gotta love that, Palmer. That's something
Yeah,
you gotta love. I mean,
yeah.
his true shooting on KenPom right now is 73.2%. Isn't that seems like a good number?
That's like center who only dunks numbers. Like that's like whatever I know. You know what I mean? That's like that's like Malik Henry number where it's like, oh, he's only gonna dunk it.
He's also shooting 97% from the line. We love someone who
Yeah,
shoots
that helps.
97% from the line.
That helps.
That
That
helps.
helps.
That helps. But of course, just it felt like the Daytona win. That felt like a coming together of what this team could be. It was a dominating win against Ohio, obviously. Pretty much in domination against Florida Atlantic for 30 minutes of that, for 33 minutes of that game. There was that 7-minute stretch where FAU made it close, but for quite honestly, it was 33 minutes of relative domination for the Patriots. Uh, it felt like just the coming together for this group, Palmer. And it just feels like that it seemed to send a message that this is not a group that's going to give away winnable games. This is a group that's going to fight. This is a group that, it's going to maybe have some splushes still early in the season. But this is a team that's come together very, very quickly. And I think that says a lot, and a lot of credit to the coaching staff.
Yeah, last year it felt like, oh, obviously they started a little slower, so it took a honestly it felt like it took until like I feel like the Dayton game last year was the one where like, okay, this
Yeah,
team
kind of
really
began
came
with Bill.
together.
Yeah.
Like, because that's when before the Dayton game we're thinking like basically we're thinking like, oh, they could be like a 4 or 5, like they could be contending for a double bye, and then after the Dayton game is like, well, now wait a minute, that was a team that was supposed to be contending for a double bye, and they just blew them out on the road. So let's see what happens here, and then I mean, they didn't lose until mid-February. So
Yeah, after the Rhode Island game, Mason was 10-5 and 1-1 in conference. Mason would go 17-4 throughout the rest of the season, including the conference tournament and the NIT games. So that just kind of shows you how last year went. And that obviously that team took a little bit of time to gel. Certainly, I think that gives credits to the coaching staff or the players that they brought in for the personalities they brought in. You got to. I think some credit has to go to Braden O'Connor too. I think this team very clearly respects him as a leader. You know, he's been injured, but he has been very vocal on the bench throughout every game. He's been there every game. He's standing up every game. And he's apparently been continuing to be, according to the Corey Mincy interview today that he had with Field of 68, he's continuing to be very vocal in practice as well. So that's something to be said about the leadership that this team has in both, I think, the coaching staff and for the players. I think that's undeniable at this point. Certainly, it's really starting to show. And, you know, sometimes that's, you know, when you have that leadership, it helps you try and make comebacks. Mason had to come back this past Saturday, Palmer. James Madison, never an easy out, came into town. Rivalry game. EBA was rocking, Palmer. We were both there on Saturday afternoon. I thought that crowd was excellent. I know people are saying, there were a lot of Duke JMU fans. I saw JMU fans sprinkled around. I felt like I didn't hear them at all. I felt like the majority of noise came very clearly from George Mason fans. I thought Mason Nation showed out for that game, but it was a slow start, mainly because Mason, you know, we talked about it last time, the last podcast, Palmer. James Madison, a very, very good three-point shooting team, showed it off in that first half.
yeah, that was a little worrying because it felt like every three that could go in was. Now, of course, it didn't end up that way because I didn't look it up, but it felt like during the second half they went like 20 minutes without making a three. But yeah, I mean, it was worrying early on, and clearly either variance showed up or Mason was defending their three better. I couldn't tell. I was too busy enjoying the game. But I mean, they stopped hitting those threes. And that was kind of their only chance of winning.
They ended up only shooting 9 for 31 from downtown. I believe that's a season low so far for the Dukes. Certainly an impressive performance from the Patriots to put up against what was one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country coming into the night. But we knew that their interior defense was a weakness, Palmer. Mason really hammered on that, ended up finishing 18 of 27 from two. That's a 67% clip, Palmer, from the Patriots. Corey Mincy, 5 for 6 from two. Riley Allensbach, a very efficient 7 of 11 from the game, including 7 of 10 from two. 17 points from Allensbach, who was the scorer number 2 behind Mincy. Masai Troutman was again very efficient from the three-point line, 3 for 4. And then a great game from Fat Hill. 15 points off the bench, 4 from 6 from 2, as well as 7 of 9 from the free throw line. That type of consistency you see from Fat at the free throw line. If that can continue, Palmer, that seems like a very, very good. That would be a very, very good ad for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he made 6 in a row, and I just remember thinking every single time he took them, I'm like, "Oh, he got fouled," but I mean, doesn't really matter. He's not going to make them both. And then every time he made them both, I'm like, "Okay, this is." I mean, I don't expect him to go. I mean, if he can get if he's a 77% free throw percentage, you're elated with that. I mean, you're so
Oh,
happy
that's a
with that.
huge deal. It would be a
Yeah,
huge deal if Fat became a 77% free throw shooter. It'd be a huge
yeah,
deal.
because last year he was 65%, which is actually higher than I thought it was going to be, but it's still not good. 77% is like what you want your guard to be shooting, and that's a guard who's going to shoot a lot of them. Honestly, he looks like it's weird, but it looks like Baraka Koji, where it's just it's one on one. I'm either getting fouled or getting a shot at the rim,
It
and
does feel like,
yeah,
and we have the questionable 3-point shooting to go along with it too. All of the
yeah,
above. He's a taller Koji.
yeah. I trusted Akoji a little more because it felt like Akoji didn't want to take those threes. It seems like Fat Hill like is just he really wants to shoot him, uh, but I mean obviously Hill has a lot higher ceiling because this
Mhm.
guy is. You could convince me he's an NBA athlete. You know,
I'm thinking about starting to call him the rubber band man because I feel
that
like
makes sense.
he's like just standing straight up. and he just can like jump straight. It's crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen that in a Mason player. He's not like I feel like he could just stand under the rim, and he could jump vertically, and he would get up to the rim. Like I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, I think he could sit in the dunker spot and dunk from there. Uh, it is kind of crazy. He has like he has the highest rebound rate or second highest rebound rate on the team for defensive rebounds. He gets really high on those, and just it's kind of like Toby the Wall, where it's like, oh man, it went somewhat near him. He's gonna get it. Uh,
Yep.
so I mean, he's higher than Alan Spock, and Alan Spock is 90th in the country. Uh, only Conga is higher. Now, of course, Conga also uses his body a little more to get those rebounds with his big foul rate. But I mean, Fat Hill has been pretty. I'll say this: I'm not saying it's like we haven't seen like the highest outcome for him, but it could be going so much worse. Like there was a realistic possibility that he comes in and he's just dribbling off his foot every time, and that's not happening.
I think Conga's free throw rate on Ken Palm is hilarious.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
what 328.6 right now or something like
Yes.
that. It's very funny.
Yes. Because yeah, they just because he's not taking shots and he's getting a lot of. I mean, he's just getting rebounds and getting fouled on the way down, and
Yes.
at some point he'll get that in the bonus.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. His physicality has been incredible. I've been continuing to be impressed by the freshman. But let's, maybe talk about the scoreline this game. Again, Corey Mincy, 25 points, 17 from Allenspach, 16 from Troutman. Perfect from the line, by the way, from Troutman. 15 from Hill. Jahari Long added in 5 assists. And again, only 10 turnovers from the Patriots, which is kind of like where Tony Skinn wants it to be. That 10 turnover range is kind of the high where he wants it to be. Again, just very impressive, it feels like, from George Mason in terms of the turnover game recently.
Yeah, I mean, uh, Fat Hill's going to get you some turnovers, but that's just the way he plays. You just have to kind of be willing to deal with it with, you know, savings. He's going to save some possessions, and some possessions that he needs to save, he won't be able to. Uh, that's just you're just okay with that. Uh, I think the big thing is Mason doesn't have any players that just throw the ball away a lot. Because in
Mm-hmm.
the past, Mason would just have. I mean, I liked Polite, but Polite was due for 2 or 3 just kind of absurdly
Whoopsie
bad
daisy.
passes where the guy just kind of standing there and just like, oh, the ball's coming to me. Uh, he doesn't get any of the Mason does not get many of those. And I feel like the only way so Masons also have to like have their big men truly create like where Mason's big men don't really get the Alan Swat got the ball in the perimeter a little more than usual. He was not driving from the perimeter to the basket until this game, but I feel like
And
that
he
kind of
can
helps
do
cut
that.
down
It's
the
kind of
turnovers.
fun.
He can, and every single time I thought he would take the three, and then he would drive to the rim. I mean, the defender also thought he was taking the three, and then beat him to the rim, and either got a foul or a open shot. Uh, I think so. I think Mason's turnovers are down because they have real nothing against Brendan Connor. He played a role he was not. He never played before because he had to, but Mason has like true point guards there, and I'm considering Jahari Long a true point guard because he's so old and like has kind of played point guard for so long.
Yep.
Uh, but I mean, the big men don't have to get the ball in the perimeter and make make magic happen like Haynes was. Whereas like you're gonna get some turnovers there. If you're just kind of basically making them do what they need to do and nothing more, they're not gonna turn over too much.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Now, Palmer, to close this one out, let's talk about the upcoming 2 games, Palmer. Now, tomorrow when we're recording this. It'll probably be today when this gets released. But Mason takes on Cornell. Funny enough, it feels like a team that's very similar to James Madison, coming in a little slightly better defensively, slightly worse offensively metrics wise. But this is a team that likes to take threes and wants to take a whole lot of them, but not a whole lot of impressive wins so far uh, from the Big Red. Three of their four, three of their four non. Three of their 4 D1 wins. They have a win over a non D1 team against teams that are 300 or lower on KenPom, including 2 teams in the bottom 30 on KenPom. in Lafayette and Army. They have a win at home in double overtime over a similarly offensive focused and defensive challenged Colgate team. But certainly, this is a team that shoots a lot of threes, one of the best in the country at them. But I think this is another one where we see the Tony Skin defensive plan probably work out here. Probably going to see a lot of Malik Presley and Jahari Long on Cornell's star guard, Cooper Nord, who you probably remember, I think is the only player on this team from the heck of a game back in the 23-24 season where Mason knocked off Cornell 90-83 at Eagle Bank Arena that year.
Yeah, that was the game where Keyshawn Hall had the highlight video posted before I got back to my dorm. That was,
Yes.
I think that's so I will never forget that, because it's like, how did you possibly post this in like the 6-minute walk back to Potomac Heights? How is this possible? But yeah, I mean, so that Cornell team, I feel like everybody, like, somehow everybody went 2 for 3 that game. But looking at them now, I mean, actually, now that I'm looking at it, so they had their game against Bucknell, which they just played. They just played Bucknell, who's not very good, who has Billy Lang's son on the team, I'm pretty sure, in Akil Spadone. That's a really fun team. But yeah, they just shot 20 for 32 from 3. Bucknell is not a good defensive team, as you
Bucknell
might
is
guess.
bottom
They're
bottom
always sub
7 in the country in 3-point defense.
Oh, that would do it. That would do it. Yeah, so they're not only are they not a good defensive team, but they're also like really bad at 3-point defense. If they get up 41, I need to make sure, like, I'm just gonna go through real quick, make sure like they aren't an okay 3-point defense, except they gave up a gazillion from 3 in one game. Yeah, I mean, that's just, I'm just gonna assume that 20 for 32 isn't kind of real, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I'm looking through Bucknell games and I'm seeing a lot of 40% for other teams.
Yeah. So that's just them. Like, I think it's just one of those, like, a bad mix of, oh no, this team is really good from 3 and we are really bad at defending it. Just kind of a, strength on weakness that just gets destroyed. Yeah, I mean, I think if you take away the 3, I mean, so Cornell shoots the 5th most threes, 3 percentage in the country. They make 41.7% of them, which is insane. Cooper Nord, as you said, shooting 43.8% on 48 shots, which is a lot this early into the season. And Adam Hinton shooting 46.2%, 26 shots. Corbin Zettner shooting 11 for 22 from 3. And then they have a bunch of guys who have like really low volume, and it's like, okay, you have to cover this guy, but I don't know how real this is, because it's like 6 for 12, 5 for 7. It's like, okay, like, you're clearly a good shooter, but I don't think you're this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly the interesting thing about Cornell, Palmer, I think this is the big difference from when we played them 2 years ago. This is a very short team, Palmer, compared to 2023-24 season. Now, that wasn't necessarily a super tall Cornell team that we played against that season, but they had some 6'8", 6'9" guys who they played consistently and could match up with some Mason size. The tallest player that Cornell consistently plays this season sits at 6'7". So, is the game plan just going to be to throw the ball into Riley and see what he can do and pass and hope he can pass out of the double teams?
I would guess so. Also, by the way, their center, like the guy who's 6'7", has 0 blocks in the season. So I don't know how good I mean, their defense isn't too great. Like, it doesn't look like a liability, but I have a feeling that they don't have a great interior presence if they're that small and their tallest guy has 0 blocks in the season.
Yes. Yeah, certainly something to watch. But is this maybe a game where we should maybe try and move Dola Adebayo down low a little bit more? He's got a good interior game. I feel like maybe Mason has now been putting him in some situations that would help out that interior game and maybe let him cook a little bit from down there. Do we even maybe try Dola at center for a couple minutes this game just because of the height difference?
It could work. I mean, I think Skin kind of runs with something that has worked, kind of doesn't want to mess with something that is working really well.
Mhm.
But if they're bombing threes and they're going in, it might be like, okay, yeah, okay, the size isn't, it isn't as much of an advantage as we want it to be. It's more of a disadvantage because of the speed. Might be like a no center lineup where you just kind of run your four at the five and hope it works. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it. Don't let better work. I think if you can't play the five, if you're a four and you can't play the five, that's pretty rough. I think he will because he's pretty physical for a four. He's not a small four. He's kind of a physical four. I think it'll work. Kind of like a
Mhm.
he's more physical than Woody Newton. He's not a wing like Woody Newton. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'll
I
work.
would absolutely agree there, Paul. But of course, we can't look ahead like the guys can't look ahead. We can't look ahead. But everybody is talking about Saturday, Palmer. Saturday, December 6th, Mason's most winnable game against the P5 in many years. As Mason travels to Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech, I'm going to be there. You're going to be there, I believe, as well, if that's correct. So there should sound like it should be a good Giant Killer by George squad showing out. It sounds like there should be a good Mason squad showing out. If the Patriots, as they should be by the statistics, should be 9-0 heading into that basketball game, it is it the biggest? Is it by the metrics the biggest regular season game of the Tony Skin era?
Uh, it might be just because it's kind of their only out of conference opportunity this isn't Q1 right now, but it's definitely their best chance at a non-con Q1. Because the problem is every other Q1 opportunity that Skin has been like, oh no, this is not like an okay Georgia Tech team. Like, no, 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 this is a tournament team that's going to be high in the tournament. Marquette turned out to be not as good as we thought they were going to be last year, but they're still a clear tournament team at Marquette, and obviously
And
like
Jalen Haynes hadn't figured out his stuff yet.
yes, and that was the game where Mason was kind of in it for like 36 minutes, and then they realized they had NBA players, and they kind of took over. But I mean, Duke Mason played well against Duke last year. Duke's offense was not happy with how they performed. So I think uh, Tech is definitely beatable, and it's probably the biggest. Probably the biggest realistic game of the Tony Skid non-con in his
Certainly.
tenure.
I think that's for sure. And I think the big question mark going into this game, I think even for both sides, the health of you mentioned him actually already in passing, but the
Mhm.
health of Virginia Tech forward Toby Lawal missed the last two games in Atlanta. Atlantis for the Hokies, clearly a big loss for their front court presence. If he is not healthy, that certainly I think improves George Mason's. It's not a season-ending injury for the Wall, but if he is not able to go, that certainly improves Mason's chances, I think, for a win.
Yeah, I mean he was kind of one of their main offensive pieces. Oh, well, so last year I think he was the number one option last year,
Yes.
which I Total Wall is super fun, but taking like A10 role player and making them your number one option, as you might have guessed, Tech was not very good last year. You know, taking a guy who's just kind of a dunker and giving him the reins to the offense. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I like Lawal. Uh, he's been out for a couple games. I think that since we haven't heard anything about him, he's probably coming back. Uh, I mean, they've been a much better team with him on the court. I mean,
I think his
I think
rebounding
both.
numbers, I think, probably are the most important thing to their team. It
Yeah,
feels
I mean,
like.
you're just getting free extra shots. With him in the lineup. Yeah, both their losses are the two games he's missed. And of course, they're also the two hardest opponents they've played. But you know what I mean? Like they didn't play well in either. Uh, I'm not saying they lost because he was out, but it definitely didn't help.
It did not
Uh,
help. So I think the margin, I don't know if they would have necessarily won either of those games with him in, but I think certainly the margin in defeat of both games was expanded because he was not in.
yes, and uh, unfortunately, somebody else who tweets a lot has the name Toby Lawal, which is really annoying. That happens a lot more than you think. When I'm looking up
Mm.
a player and it's like, oh, this guy who tweets 18 times a day has the same name. Uh, But yeah, I can't find it's getting tough to find any injury news. Uh, yeah, I think he's probably back. I'm just gonna assume he's back since I can't find anything that says he's out long term. Yeah, Tech just said out for with lower body, which does
Yeah.
not that doesn't help me at all. And also, I feel
Well,
like I saw him. Yeah, when I saw him on the sideline, like it didn't look like he's not hooked up to a. He didn't have a boot and crutches. Like I think this was okay. He's only not playing because these games are back to back days. You know what I mean?
yep, absolutely. Absolutely, Palmer. But this is a big stretch here for the Patriots. We won't be back until after the Tech game. But yeah, we're going to be there. So don't worry. We're going to be there. We're going to be sharing it loud and proud, our Mason pride. And I hope we see a lot of fellow Patriots fans down there because, Palmer, like I said, the season is fun. The season is hot. And George Mason is 8-0. And they're hoping to look to move to 10-0 by this time next week. But for now, that's all from us. This is the Onward to Victory podcast run by Giant Killer. I'm Joe Szymanski. He's Palmer Johnson. This is your one-stop shop for all things George Mason basketball. We will see you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.